And we are live. Welcome to Indie Music Issues, everyone. My name is Björgvin Benediktsson, founder of Audio Issues, author of Step by Step Mixing, and You Get What You Give. And I'm here with Ryan of Indie Music Academy.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back. We did this exact stream last week. We're going to make it a regular
and I'm
Tuesday
here with
thing.
Ryan
Whoa.
of Indie Music Academy.
There's us. There's us in another dimension.
At least we know what the lag is.
Yeah, that's right. That was like a full 14 seconds, I think. So keep in mind, everyone tuning in, we're 14 seconds ahead. I'm not sure.
We're ahead, yeah.
We're in a different universe over here. But yeah, welcome. We're going to talk about content creation versus running ads. This is a theme that comes up again and again, especially on my channel. Oh, by the way, hi, I'm Ryan from the Indie Music Academy, the channel where we uncover the mysteries of the music industry, learn how to grow a larger fan base, and earn income from our music. I had to get that in because we were so impressed last week. But thanks so much for tuning in. Let's begin. I think we have a few people already watching. Say hi in the comments so we can
feel free to chime in, ask any questions. And and let us know what you think. And if we're going off on something that you want to know more about, or you have any specific questions on anything we're talking about, do let us know. And if it is not pertinent to today's topic, we will either answer it right now or talk about it at a later date. So very cool. Let's all right, let's talk about organic content marketing versus paid ads. What should you do?
The question.
Which is better? Which is a trick question, of course. And what should you? How should you go about doing either and or both of those?
That is the question.
I think the best way to do this is just kind of lay out the strategy on both of our sides and see what comes out of that. So
absolutely.
First, just to recap a little bit what we talked about last week, and this is also something that is relevant today, is like I like to talk about the two levers that you have to run your business or run your career. It's time and money. If you don't have any money, you have to use time and quote unquote hustle to get your name out there, make connections, and create relationships. And then if you have money, you can use that money to buy your time back through hiring people to either create content for you or run ads, or you basically use that money to buy your time back so that you can focus on scaling. So that sort of goes into the two levers of marketing. In this case is the marketing, which is a lot of the creation of stuff that gets found maybe organically, and then paid ads and what paid ads are designed to do, because paid ads are different beasts than content marketing. So how do you run your content plus ads strategy, Ryan?
Yeah, totally. So just like you said, they're levers that you pull, right? But not all levers work at all times. Not all levers are perfect in every situation. Like for example, a lever that you can pull is hiring a staff. But if you're not ready to hire staff, that can literally be the worst decision, right? So running ads could be a great decision. It can be a terrible decision. And content on the flip side of that, they're almost opposites, right? So content is where you don't have a budget, and you just trade your time in and create these online assets, right? That's the fancy way to, videos or posts or whatever, right? You trade your time to create content, and that is how you can invest in growing your audience. And so what I do, what I did to start is I was 100% organic content. And that's because that was the lever I could pull at the time.
Right.
It's the one that made sense. I wasn't willing to risk the loss, the huge devastating loss that can happen by, flipping the switch on Facebook, right? Because we're not talking about boosting posts. Like, boosting posts is very specific.
Yeah. We're talking about having a real ad strategy where you're spending potentially hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a day.
Exactly. Yeah. So boosting posts, a lot of the times they're grouped together because it seems like it would be the same thing, but they're not. Not at all. Boosting posts is really just a way to get engagement on a post, which looks really good. But an advertisement has a campaign goal, and you need to set that up in Ads Manager, and things need to optimize, and there are optimization rules. And it's more than just throwing money at Facebook, padding the pockets of Mr. Zuckerberg. But
yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. You can potentially spend a lot of money on and getting nothing in return because you don't have an underlying strategy behind the ad. So
yeah, exactly.
So the safe bet is to create content, but at the same time, you are spending time that you can't get back. You can hypothetically, you can always make more money, but you can't ever make more time. So that's the sort of limitation that you're kind of always working inside of. Is this if you want to scale, you have to scale outside of yourself. That's why people, when they build businesses, they try to build a business that can live on without them because they need to use their time for something else.
Totally.
Yeah. So organic content, I think some of the three things that are sort of the reasons why you would want to have organic content as a pillar of your strategy, marketing strategy, is it gives you credibility, especially if you have like really good in-depth either articles or videos that people find, that you can sort of establish your authority and expertise in the field that you're in. So credibility is really, really like, it's good in that way. Like that's one of the reasons why people think that I have anything to contribute to the world of mixing, is because I've just been writing about how all these processors and plugins work for years, right? And it also gives you goodwill when somebody lands a content that really helps them, because the best way to help people is not to tell them that they have to pay for your time or pay for your product. The best way to help them is to just help them. And the best way to do that without spending your time is to write or create a content that they can find and consume without you. And that gives them goodwill to maybe take the next step with you and then possibly buy your book or join your course or hire you for songwriting, production, etc. Right?
Totally. And I think it's important to also touch upon like why the heck these two drastically different things are talked about in the same sentence. Like why are they both included in the show today? And the reason is because organic content can actually do a lot of the same things that ads do as well.
Yeah.
Right. So organic content can make you discoverable if you do it on certain platforms. Build trust, just as you said. I would love to know, everyone who's watching, like, please comment if you've tried one of these. Like, if you've tried ads, let us know in the chat. Also, if you have, a blog or like a regular show on social media or a YouTube channel or anything that's in the category of organic content, let us know. I want to know what you guys have tried so far. But they're basically different methods to reach the same end goal, which is getting discovered. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. So,
and the discoverability is an interesting factor, and it sort of sets certain social media sites apart from others, because Instagram is not designed to be a search engine and Facebook is not designed to be a search engine. So the discoverability is lower when it comes to those social media giants, I guess you could call them, versus something like Google and YouTube, because people are going on Google to search because they have a problem that you may have an article or a video that solves that for them or gives them techniques on how to solve that for them. And YouTube is the same way, and obviously they're owned by the same alphabet, whatnot. So when you search on Google, you're kind of also searching on YouTube, but when you're searching on YouTube, you're looking for videos, and there is a discoverability factor there that isn't necessarily on Facebook and Instagram, which is maybe all a part of the big master plan on Zuckerberg's site, because that makes it so that we buy ads to reach people on those platforms. Because I never run Google ads. I haven't run any YouTube ads before, because I get found on Google, but organically, and then I use my money to get found on Facebook and Instagram.
Right. Yeah. So it looks like some answers are coming in.
Cool.
Calder says, I've tried both. My content equally is awesome as much as it sucks right now. That's good. That's how we all feel, hit or miss, right? That's the thing, though. It's not really about making every piece of content, like museum worthy, but it's just, trying over and over and over again. And you'll have those times where it's like, man, this was a really great video. And it's almost like writing songs, right? Not every song is going to be a hit song, but you kind of have to go through the process of finding your 80-20, right? The 20% that kind of carries the rest, but you have to actually go through that.
And I find that quantity leads to quality, but if you keep focusing on quality and never actually finish anything, you might at most have one piece of quality content, versus the person that's going for quantity will get better over time. So keep that in mind too. Like, it doesn't have to be, a 10,000 word blog post about, and not everything has to be a comprehensive article or a paper on a subject. It can just be like something you learned, or an anecdote that leads to something that is useful to your preferred audience or your target audience. So a lot of it has to do with sort of just not worrying too much about things needing to be perfect, because they won't be, and that's fine.
Yeah, Omer says, only starting, but organic is the general direction of this content strategy. Christopher says, we've leveraged both to increase our discoverability. That's awesome. Yeah. Calder's back. Use paid ads on Facebook for original music, content coaching. Ads work really well to get new listeners. Highly targeted, didn't follow up and retain the new listeners. But hey, that's a really good point.
Yeah. Sort of brings you to the having the strategy, but because you don't start by making the ads, you start by creating the machine behind the ads. And if somebody clicks on an ad and signs up for whatever you have to offer, or books a call for your coaching, or listens to your music or whatever, what's the next step? You want to be thinking about their entire journey before they even embark on them, right? So what's your goal? Like, is your goal for them to become clients, customers, new fans, readers, sponsors, whatnot? So what is the machine that you create behind the ads or behind the content that leads them sort of breadcrumb style in the direction that you want to take them? Because, and this is, we don't have ultimate control over social media, but we have control over our websites and the design and usability of the website, so that it leads people in the right direction. Right?
Totally. Yeah. And it's like, are you running ads just to grow that number on social media, and you're just kind of like taking it as a total financial hit? Or is there like an actual business behind, the ad that you're running? Right. Whether it's, I know, Calder does music, he does singing, coaching. And so like that, that's a business, but if you're just kind of running ads to, look more impressive, that's not as much as a solid goal. And so that's one of those situations where you can find that, you can really find yourself in a financial hole without much actual business growth and progress at the end of the year, if you're kind of just taking it a year at a time, Right. It looks like Christopher is chatting in. He's saying engagement's not where it needs to be yet.
So is that
exactly?
It's interesting. Like, let's talk about, like, he says engagement's not where it needs to be. So what does that mean? Like, what does engagement mean? Like, where does it need to be? Where is it now? And is that the metric that will make or break your business. So like I don't measure engagement ever because I don't really know what that means. What I measure is cost per lead and cost per action, well, which is cost per lead, and if you're trying to get email subscribers, and what's your net profit margin off of your advertising costs. What's the lifetime value of a single customer? What's your average order value of all your customers? Because once you know those numbers, you can create a formula and a math equation that basically means that if you hit those numbers, you're profitable. So like that's when you can actually use the power of paid advertising to scale up your business, your music career, whatnot. But you have to know those numbers because otherwise you're flying in the dark.
Yeah, what I would want to know, Christopher, and we can workshop this in the comments, as time allows today. But what I would want to know is what is the end goal other than engagement? Because if engagement is the end goal, I don't know if spending money for engagement is going to be sustainable long term. It would almost be like, I'm going to pay my way, into a certain image, but that doesn't really have any backing in reality, because as soon as you take away the ad, as soon as you take away the funds, right, that image kind of dissolves, right? So I would want to know, and you don't have to comment right away. I want you to think about this, but what is the end goal for these ads other than engagement on a post? Because to me, engagement on a post, it just disappears. It's like smoke, it's there and then it's gone, right? The posts, they don't stick around. Like you can scroll on Instagram and you won't even see a single post older than, a few hours, depending on how many people you're following, so
totally.
Like that just is not a good enough goal as an ads manager. I would want to know what the business goal is long-term, right? So let us know. Would love to know your thoughts. Looks like we got a couple more.
Yeah, just check it out.
Doing both. Growing my list. Very good.
Yeah.
Increase discoverability. Lots of learning, experimenting on Facebook ads. Yeah, exactly. It is basically a massive A/B test.
Yeah. Yeah, you're always trying new stuff out. You're always trying to figure out your audience, and so that your ads get put in front of people that actually care, right? Because that's the most, you have to be running targeted advertising, because otherwise they're just, you're not going to advertise your new metal single to a folk lover, right? Unless they love both, of course. But, it's like you're not going to advertise, well, this is basically for me, you're not going to advertise any like newborn parent stuff like diapers and stuff like that to teenagers that never will buy a diaper, because that's just wasted ad money, right?
Yeah, I don't get diaper ads yet.
I do.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
But like, so from us, I have a few notes here on paid advertising. So like, it's all about scaling, having that strategy behind the ad, and then also like there's only one purpose for an ad, and it's to attract the person that you're trying to attract and repel everyone else. And you can be, you can be divisive, or you can have a very be very, well, I guess like controversial in your ads sometimes, and that can maybe help you, kind of you put your what is it, flag,
draw the line in the sand.
Yeah, you draw the line there and say this is for these people. Like I've written ads that are like, if you are a professional engineer making pro records and making money from them, this ad is not for you, And then I've also done, because my step-by-step mixing book and all the sort of like content and courses that I create, it follows a structured formula and a process, because I like to teach you a sort of a foolproof process that you can go through in order to get from like a rough production or a rough recording to a finished mix without playing around with plugins for hours, because I want you to finish your songs and release your records, right? So
Mhm.
That's why I call my stuff systems and formulas, because they're designed for you to be able to plug your song into them. And that does not that's not something that people like to see on the internet. There's a lot of like angry curmudgeon engineers that say like, oh, there's a formula. No, yeah, right. Like, but that's the thing, is like when they comment on those ads, and also if you're wasting time commenting on an ad on Facebook, you're really wasting your time. Like, that's not, you should do literally anything else to grow your career than be angry at an ad you saw on Facebook or Instagram. But those people, I'm not advertising to them. My ads may appear in front of them because they are tangentially involved with the topics that I am talking about, right? But my ads are not for them, and that's just what you really need to think about, is who you're trying to target and what change you're trying to make in there, with your content for them.
Yeah, that's really good. I call it something that your exact strategy. If you're in the indie growth community, we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, but I call it the anti-ad, and it's basically like whatever you think is supposed to be an advertisement, kind of like do the opposite, and it works really well for the artists. Like one of the artists in my community, Marcelo, he did an ad that was like super awesome. Don't want to give away his secrets, but it was basically like, calling out the fact that, hey, this is another band, doing another Facebook ad, but seriously. And it was kind of funny. And it was like an example of like, you could totally see his personality shining through it. It was like that anti-ad strategy that like caught your attention. But if at the same time, if you were like, not willing to check out new music, it would totally repel you away. But the people who are willing to check out new music, they were attracted in like a magnet, because they're like, dude, this guy is witty, he's funny. Already I can see his personality. And the music's cool too. Yeah. And that ad's working really well for him as a musician, growing his fan base. So
right. And that, that ties back into organic strategy too, is because you want your personality to shine through. You don't want every article or video you make to just be sort of generic advice. You want to like be there. You want to build your brand on specific values that you have. Like, I don't take myself very seriously, which is why I'm a cartoon online. I like encouraging people and being positive, which is why I just simply hate the sort of, you need $10,000 worth of gear in order to even be allowed to make a record, which is like, that's not they don't have permission. You don't need their permission in order to do to make your music and all that. So I take a stand against them, sort of the old curmudgeon-y old guard, whoever they are, right? But because I feel like people need to be able to express their creativity, and if I can, push them a little bit over the line so that they actually hit publish on their song that they've been worried about whether it's good enough or not, I'm sure you're never gonna make it big and become a popular superstar with a song, but it's about little bits at a time, releasing and building your brand or your career a little bit at a time. So if I can encourage people to be creative with whatever that it is that they're making, that's like that should shine through in their content, and that's what I try to put in my content.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the chat really quick, because there's been a lot of activity.
Yeah.
He looks like Christopher answered. He said his goal is brand awareness, to eventually sell music and merch. So that's way better of an answer than post engagement. So I'm glad you thought about that. So keep that in mind. Yeah. From now on.
And that at that point, that becomes like the math. The math becomes, how much money am I spending on advertisement? How can I track that ad spend to my sales? And if my ads are going up and my sales are going up equally or double or whatever, then, and if you like cut your ads and your sales go down, that there's a correlation there.
Mm-hmm. And caller says it's building a relationship with your new fans and getting them on the journey that leads to sales down the line.
Right.
100% agree. And I like that you point into the journey too, because it's not just an ad should equal sales, like bam, direct connection, whatever. Yeah. It really is a relationship that grows. And it might take weeks, it might take months, but it is an investment. And
and
Terry's a good one too.
Terry. Yeah, I know that guy. He's great. I feel like creating content is cool for keeping my current followers engaged, but what about getting new followers? How can I build my audience without ads? So going back to what we talked about earlier, create content on search platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can create content that's discoverable on Instagram using the correct hashtags and those sorts of things, but you want to think about the psychology of the person that's on these platforms. What's the psychology, or like what's the general demeanor of the person on Instagram? It's this, right? Just scrolling mindlessly, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing with Facebook. But when you're on YouTube, you're probably looking for something, or you get retargeted by relevant videos based on what you were watching. And if you use tools like TubeBuddy on YouTube to get your keywords, like your tags and your keywords, and you have engaging thumbnails, like that's all about optimization and optimizing your platform and your page in a way. But
right,
I would say look to create content on platforms that are searchable, or figure out what people do on social media platforms when they are looking for something.
Right. And the great thing about YouTube also is that there is an algorithm too. So you're not necessarily missing out on, the algorithmic benefits of Instagram, that are talked about so much, right? There's the YouTube recommended videos. Every time you type in youtube.com and you go to your own personalized homepage, you have like 9 videos there. Well, actually it scrolls on forever and ever, right? But there's like, I think like 8 or 9 videos right at the top that are specifically geared and recommended. And as the creator, right, if your video gets there, that's just a ton of visibility that you normally would not be getting, on other platforms that tend to bury your content, right? Because you're not a celebrity, the Instagram world generally isn't interested in you unless if you already have a pretty sizable audience and you're trending, you're a sports athlete, or you're already famous.
Yeah.
But YouTube's different because it's very discussion based. And so you can sneak into those like almost little micro audiences that YouTube does a good job of creating. So
Seth Godin has a lot of good thoughts on how you really should be trying to get the smallest viable audience that cares about what makes you uniquely you, or your process uniquely yours. And because if you're trying to be for everybody, you're not going to be for anybody. But if you're trying to help a very select few that you know how to help exactly, then that you can build something from there. But if you're constantly trying to like modify what you're doing based on trying to cater to everybody, you're going to spread yourself too thin. You're not going to have any specific process in place because you're always constantly changing. And this is very difficult to do. It's difficult to stay on track and be like, and believe in like the process and the business that you've created, of course. But I think that there is, especially when you're getting started or when you're trying to find your core audience, that you should be trying to figure out the smallest viable audience that can, sustain you. Right.
Just kind of opposite of what the trending advice is. It's like boost your post to like the entire North America, or
right.
or just like hashtag spam your posts to get into these giant like little content buckets. But like here's the reality of hashtags, because I see that Mark put in a comment about them. putting in hashtags that are like, you know, musicpreneur or whatever, you know, it's like these huge, like rock music, you
Right.
know, like pop 2021, like those audiences are so huge.
Yeah.
First of all, you might not even get visibility. So that ends the conversation right there. But like, what is the quality of this person? Like, are they just going to see you and keep scrolling, you know? And it's, so yeah, to kind of summarize the answer, and you're talking to someone who just deleted Instagram off his phone, but you know, hashtags are a very low quality way to interact with someone.
Right.
And there's better ways to spend the time. There's a certain amount of effort involved when it comes to making yourself discoverable in the first place. And so I think it really matters to focus on the tasks that are going to last the longest and are also going to create the highest quality interaction. And I think Björgvin like nailed it on the head when it's like, you want to find people who are already kind of looking for you, right? And then you also want to find people who are going to engage with you and interact with you in a super meaningful way. And, you know, this is outside of the topic that we're discussing today, but I can't wait for live music to come back, because that is one of the most meaningful interactions that we have as musicians. But if you can think of any way to kind of replicate the intimacy and the, just the quality of interaction that live music brings online, then you're winning, you know, and it doesn't matter how fast you grow as long as you're growing the right way.
Right. Right. Yeah. Calder had a good comment here about what I was talking about, there's a system cynicism. I think people resist the idea of formulas about songwriting or production in general, because he's building a course in that. But the thing is that limitation is super valuable to have. Because if you build yourself a box to work in, you can actually get some results done inside that box. But if you have like the entire universe to try things out in, you're never gonna accomplish anything. So like, instead of trying to make the next unique song that nobody's gonna like because it's like too off the wall and doesn't follow any traditional structures that people, because you're making the music for the people that are used to listening to a similar style that you're making, you have to have some form of limitation inside that you're working within, so that it makes sense for the consumer that's going to then consume that music. If you just want to make weird music that's completely avant-garde every way, I wouldn't expect a big audience. But on the flip side, maybe you can find the smallest viable audience for that weird music. So I still think there's a lot of there's a lot of importance in creating yourself a framework or using limitations to achieve a goal. Instead of trying to write a song that's like all over the place, just write 5 songs that have maybe 5 different song structures that are still slightly traditional based on what actually is popular. Because if you're trying to get popular or trying to build a career or trying to fit into an industry, you have to follow some of the rules. You can maybe bring your unique perspective on those rules, but you have to follow some of the structure.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Actually, that goes really well into Calder's other comment. Finding people who are looking for you is harder with original music than a business like teaching and coaching. Would you agree? I would only, I think, partially agree. And up until like maybe last year, I think I would say like, oh yeah, it's definitely easier to find people who have like a problem, and you're like offering a solution. So like the classic kind of like, I need help with my mixing. Well, here's how I mix. You can learn from me, right? So
right.
That's what my answer would have been maybe last year. However, my answer recently changed working with a great artist named Patrick. We were working on his Facebook ads together. So mind you, this is the Facebook ad strategy. This is extremely similar to what a business would do on Facebook, like running ads to find people. But with Pat, something that I realized is that people are not necessarily looking for your music. They're looking for a great brand. And we ended up nailing that with Pat. Like, he was releasing an album, you know, and he had like a single, and he was working on a couple music videos. All of it was not out yet. And so what we were able to do, we were able to build his list to 10,000 subscribers when he was launching his very first album. And, you know, a lot of people might think that it's too good to be true. It's impossible, but it is possible if you have a great brand, right? So it depends on how you're positioning yourself. Are you thinking of yourself just as a creative who, I'm just going to make music, I'm just going to spill my heart, and hopefully people care about me? I mean, that's good and honorable, but that's not necessarily a marketing strategy, right? So kind of taking a step out of that, right? Taking a step beyond the artistry and thinking, what do people want to engage with? Like, people are spending time on social media. Like, how do they want to have fun? You know, what is something that will, you know, speak to them and invite them in and make them super entertained, for lack of a better word. And there's, you know, the answer that I teach at the Indie Music Academy is creating something that I call a fan magnet. And we did the same thing with Pat. We created his fan magnet before his album was even out, and he was able to release his album to 10,000 people who were already introduced to him. And so like that, his growth happened so much faster than my coaching business. And I'm like, dude, like, that's incredible. So I think, to answer your question in a more detailed way, people are not looking for your original music. So the way that you ask the question, you know, kind of, it kind of goes to the answer, like, yeah, it is harder. But if you kind of shift the question and say, finding people who are looking for a great, entertaining personality who's willing to engage with a group of people personally, and then also has music as entertainment value, and then you share your music and you share your products after you build the audience, I think that's a really different way to view the question. It's also a really different way to view the way that you market your music as well. Yeah. So something to chew on. I'm not really a big fan of saying that the music doesn't matter, because I think it does a lot. But
I think the way that you position it and create an experience or a brand around it matters a ton to creating like a marketing strategy. Like, that's what
exactly.
Like, when you get marketing marketing agencies or whatever involved in a business or in an artist, that's what they bring to the table, is sort of the uniformity of a brand that caters to a specific audience, and sort of formulates or modulates a person so that they are more striking, because everything's pointing at, you know, one type of brand experience in a way.
Yeah, and I'm glad that was encouraging, because it is. It's like everything is true and universal. It's like what we said last week. You know, the tips and the tricks, right? They'll fail you time and time again, but solid marketing concepts and principles and systems, exactly what Björgvin was saying, those are universal and they work. You know, whether you're a musician, whether you're an online business, whether you are a coach, whether you are a shoe company, you know, whether you're selling whatever, right? So making sure that you don't forego the solid marketing principles that are required for any advertising campaign, right? That are required for any brand, musical or non-musical. That's important. You know, it's important not to kind of think of yourself as exempt from that just because you're a musician. I mean, it's just not true. You know, marketing has certain principles based off of how humans respond to stories and how humans respond to emotion. And so that is something that I would not forget and would not separate from, your music when you're marketing.
Right. Definitely. Cool. Yeah. What else we got here in the chat? Yeah, Calder said when I launch next time, I need to go further into what makes me me and sell myself and what my music is for and written about. And we talk about this a lot. It's like, I'm sure, like, I know, like, we both actually personally know Calder here, and we know, both of us, that he has plenty of stories to tell, and plenty of stories that can act as selling him for who he is and what his music is about, whether it's selling his own music or him as a successful coach or whatnot, or a content creator in any way. So there's plenty of stories that he can probably throw into his marketing materials that make him more authentically unique than maybe he was before. Not that he wasn't, it's that if you're not saying it out loud to other people, they're not going to come to those conclusions on their own,
Yeah. And then, Oxynova. That's a cool name. He asks, who's Pat? And also Ian's asking, would the example of Pat apply to the music community? So Pat's an artist that I worked with running ads, growing his fan base. And to answer your question about the music community, we just did like a marketing campaign that could work for anything, right? It's basically figuring out, where does like your brand and your audience interests meet, right? And creating something right in the middle of that, so that you're not just like throwing ads and throwing content and spending money, creating something that people will just scroll past, not care about, right? But where do the interests meet? And so that might mean like doing something different than just sharing your music, doing something different than just performing or making an ad on your music video, right? Because that's very, I guess, self-focused, right? And if you kind of keep your advertising and your marketing self-focused, you're giving everyone the perfect reason just to scroll right past. It's like, it doesn't relate to me. Like, right. Yeah, just another band, And so, so to answer your question, Ian, that example would apply to anything, no matter what you are, marketing. The music community is honestly much easier to talk about because it's a very specific goal, right? So you need community. Well, why would anyone care that you're creating a community? The answer to that question is going to be the key to a successful ad. Why do they care about your community? If you brainstorm that and you find the answer, and that answer is based in reality, then you're going to resonate with the person who's viewing your ad. And once that magical moment where that digital connection happens, it's like, oh man, this really speaks to me. Like, whatever this person is doing, I want to learn more about that. I want to be involved, whether that's a band, whether that's a community, whether that's a store that you're starting, right? It can be anything. Even a product line can be inspiring if it makes that connection. If it inspires, someone like, oh wow, I never knew that existed. I need to check that out. And so the answer to that question is the key to a successful ad. And it's much more than just like, which audiences do I select? Like, what do I type? What do I say? Like, what are the tips and tricks that are supposed to make for good ads? It's like, no, it's like you have to understand, the system behind it. And the system is finding what resonates with your audience. And there is a process for discovering that. It's called audience research.
Right.
And that really truly is the secret. It's not even a secret. It's just a process that you have to understand.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And he says, like, the music community is a collective that helps hobbyist artists and bands grow. So, like, basically you have your audience or your idea of an audience, but also you want to be thinking of, like, what's the result that they're going to get? And, like, because if I engage with this community, what is that going to do for me? Where am I going to be in 6 months if I join your community? So I always like to, whenever I consult with any business, I always like to ask them, like, what is the one tangible, defined result that your service or product will give your customer or client? And that's what you should be, like, quote unquote, selling, is the results. Like in my case, it's professional mixes or professionally released records that you're proud of. Like that's the thing that I want people to do, is like hit publish and be proud of the fact that their music now sounds equally good as, the songs that they hear on the radio or stream on Spotify.
Yeah.
What else we got? Just dead air. Let's just do dead air for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's just a moment of silence for content, for organic content, because we haven't talked about organic content in 20 minutes. It's a moment of silence.
Well, I mean, like I create a lot of organic content, and actually going back to something somebody said about it being a journey. So whether you're doing organic content or paid ads, you want to think of, I hate doing the whole funnel, but like it kind of is a funnel, and whether people are getting aware of your stuff from a paid ad or from a piece of content, you want to create that journey for them, which basically means that you need to create more content, which is what their fan magnet or lead magnet is, right? They're the same thing. You just rebranded it. It's basically like, what do you get, or what does your audience get in exchange for engaging with you further by like joining their email list or whatnot? I've created a lot of lead magnets or fan magnets throughout the years, whether it's my mix finisher cheat sheet that you can get at mixfinisher.com, plug there, or like my quick mixing checklist, or my 6 steps to fix your muddy mixes. That was just a blog post that I created that I put into a PDF and then put on a landing page. And then like that's a piece of content that you are creating that they will engage with further. And then now that they're on your email list, what are you going to do to nurture that journey even further? In my case, I share my story, but I also give tips and techniques that I know will help them make better mixes. I'll talk about, I'll give away excerpts from chapters of my books, for instance, or I'll link to blog posts that I have in the archives that are evergreen, that always like are valuable regardless of when you read them. Even if it was published 5 years ago, doesn't mean that somebody new won't find value from it. So it's up to you, or it's actually your responsibility to create an email sequence or a campaign after they've become your fans or subscribers that take them further down the funnel, or if you will, and engage with all the content that you've created in the past. And it also gives you ideas for content to create in the future, because they are on your email list, and now they might email you back, and then you might have a conversation with them, and they might ask a question. And questions are amazing, because as soon as somebody asks you a question, guess what? That's another piece of content that you can create that helps them know, like, and trust you more. And then hopefully maybe they'll buy your books, join your courses, become a coaching client, join your community or whatnot. And at that point, the value transaction becomes, it makes you a little bit of money. It gives them value by giving them that one tangible result to improve their lives in some way, whether that is a professionally produced and released record, or a fan base, or 6-minute abs. I don't know,
6-minute abs. Where can I sign up?
Right. So like, so you want to think about like, what's the journey? Like what's the type of person that's going to buy your ebook or join your course? And what's the type of content that you create that will attract this person? And what can you do after they buy your book or or ask you to, critique their song or whatever, or hire you for an hour of coaching, like what can you offer them that can help them even further? Because
Mhm.
then now you're just growing the customer relationship, and as long as both of you are equally well off, if not, combined, better off in every way, like that's how you should really be thinking about your customer relationships. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
All right.
we got some good questions about it too.
Cool. Great.
So Youngie asks, really want to know if being in recovery from narcotics, being my own producer, engineer, mixing, mastering artist, I'm a musician, and I also do my own graphic art for my brand, and I'm a girl. Is that a good entry point into that connection? Because I really feel it is. All I want to do is inspire people doing what I love and what I'm good at, making a living from it. I want others to see this and know that they can do it too. And so that is really cool. Let me throw up the first one. So yeah, this journey that we keep talking about is heavily grounded in who you are and who your story is. I mean, that's what are you going to do? Create a journey based off of someone else's story, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So every challenge, every unique thing about you, every bit of your talent stack, it all goes into creating pretty much a unique fan journey. And so absolutely, all of that stuff is great ammunition for the content, for the stories, for everything that's required to warm up your fans.
Yeah.
And so so that's all great. And specifically, you're asking, is that a good entry point into that connection? That is something I want to zoom in for, because I want to ask you next, what does that entry point look like in just like black and white reality? So is it going to be a YouTube channel? Is it going to be something where you're on camera and you're sharing your story and you're asking people to join along with you? I feel like that's the only missing piece, because you clearly have the story to tell, and you clearly have a heart for bringing people together, and that's good. I would just want to know what the mechanism is to actually accomplish that.
Like, where's the, like, what's the channel? Where are you going to show up? What's the consistency that you can maintain? And what are the pieces of content that relate to your story that you think might inspire others?
Exactly. And Calder chimed in something really helpful. It's a great combination of unique things that others will relate to. The right people, and that's really good. That's key. The right people will be all over this. And so I really wanted to highlight that, because Calder's right. It's all about going narrow, going specific, knowing who you're talking to, and cultivating that narrow community versus being for everyone, which is a very common mistake, very common artist, musician mistake, just trying to make music for everyone. And then nobody resonates with you specifically because you're not for anyone.
Right.
So,
and also think about the type of content you want to create. What makes you like creating that content? Because you'll have to also want, like, if you're going to, build a business or grow a career, you're thinking 10, 20, forever years, right? You're not going to do this for 1 year, because that's not really a career. That's a side hustle and a hobby at most. But what kind of content fires you up? What's easy for you to do? What's fun for you to do? Like, I will admit very, very easily, like, I hate making YouTube videos, and I just don't like being on camera. Well, it's funny saying that. Like, it's not that I don't like being on camera. I don't like talking to a camera and making a video for nobody that's in the room. Having a conversation with Ryan and hopefully helping people in the audience along the way, that's way easier for me. More
very
fun,
different vibe.
more engaging. Yeah. Like, we've been on, it's been 54 minutes, and like, I wouldn't even be halfway through setting up for my 10-minute YouTube video by now, Whereas writing a blog post or crafting a story or writing a short story based email, I can do that in 30 minutes and knock that out super easy. So that's
Mhm.
my focus. So find your focus moving forward and building your career or brand is what can you do consistently that you like doing. So I'm going to just go back, more or less go back. I say this when like I'm uploading a YouTube video and dropping a YouTube video tomorrow about this BB29 microphone that we're giving away. But so like it's easier for me to do this and the writing, and I think that should be enough, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely go into seasons of that too. I'm like, it's so much easier just to go live and have a conversation, and because it's so true. It's like you're making the video for the potential, that people will view it in the future and hopefully relate. But there's something way more satisfying about relating in real time and like being able to, pretty much chat with Calder and Ian and everyone who's on right now in real time. So
right. Yeah.
Looks like we had a couple of really good comments that just popped in. One of them I'll take. It'll be an opportunity to plug, but how would an artist go about creating his or her brand through their music? More importantly, how should they go about projecting that onto their audience? So that's a very huge question. So I just wanted to take the moment to direct your attention to the link in the description. There's a link to my course, the 80/20 Music Business Crash Course, which has a branding module in it. It's actually a 1-month course. So there's a solid 5 or 6 lessons on branding. You get a branding document that I usually only use in my private coaching scenario. And so you get that included, and you're going to be able to create your brand, know how to project it with your audience. And it's a very complicated question that is unpacked bit by bit over the 30-day course. So if you're interested in that, that link is below, and that course is ready to go, already prepared for you. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
We got a couple of other good ones. Yeah, I'm glad we're not the only one.
Yeah. So like I like feeling like I'm in a classroom talking to people, because like I like doing lectures with people in a room. Like that's easy enough to do. But trying to structure something for somebody later down the line is just like, that's not fun for me.
Yeah.
But it's Jesta here said, sounds like Youngie can make content for people recovering from narcotics. Yeah, I think that's like could be a good pillar of her story, that's a difficult journey, and you might be able to inspire a lot of people along the way if you share the pain and the salvation from that as well. Because people can relate to you in those ways too, even if they're not, addicts or anything like that. But you might have people that have addicts in the family. You might have people that are recovering and have been forever. Or you might have people that, are on the precipice of maybe doing something foolish, and then you can save them from that, Yeah. Okay, what's anything else we got going on here? Yeah. Margo says, I already have a fair amount of followers on YouTube as a performer. However, there are a lot of lifestyle items that my fans seem to gravitate to. I've been promoting them on Instagram and Facebook. Found respondable to these lifestyle pieces, but not really going anywhere. Do you right? What? I guess not entirely sure what the lifestyle pieces are. Yeah. So anyway,
it sounds to me like you have a good opportunity to combine what people are already resonating with, and a missing piece, right? This missing piece could be your music, but what people are already resonating with, and the missing piece that makes it more meaningful. You said you found that they're responding well to these lifestyle pieces, but they're not really going anywhere, and that is a problem. That's kind of the plight of Instagram. It's like, I'm making all this content, I'm getting all these likes, and then for some reason I'm like still performing to 3 people, or whatever the problem is that you're facing, right? It's very hard to evaluate social media engagement as something that is truly real and helpful and good and going to propel you forward, most of the time it actually does not. It's like worthless in almost every way. So finding that missing piece that you can combine these types of content that people are resonating with, making maybe like a hybrid to what you're doing now, seems like a great thing to brainstorm. That's my thought.
Yeah. Ox, he said, do you think it's good for an artist to have a super unique story that not many can relate to, or one that is more relatable but not as unique? I think that you can have a very, very unique story that people will relate to because they will see certain reflections of themselves in your story. There's a really good book called Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance, I think. Have you read that book?
No.
So
sounds
it's
awesome though.
Yeah, it's really good. It was like #1. It was just a giant smash hit bestseller. I was on tour in Alaska with an Americana band, and for like straight 48 hours, I just did not communicate with my band members because I was just so engrossed in this book. But like, so this tells a story of this guy. It's basically about like white middle America and their struggles, because a lot of poverty and a lot of like lack of opportunities in, I think it was in Kentucky, and where they come from in Kentucky and what their sort of the mindset and the sort of perspective on life, that sort of subculture of the American of the American people is. But it tells the story of this guy that then goes on to get a scholarship or goes to Ohio State and then gets like a Juris Doctorate, like becomes an attorney, or goes to law school at Yale, gets a scholarship to Yale. And it's his struggles with his mom, who was struggling with pills, was on oxys, and which is a common story. And from this small town that did not have a lot of opportunities, and he had to rely on his grandma, and his grandma was a big key mother figure in his life, and that sort of stuff. And this has nothing to do with like my upbringing, because I'm from Iceland. I'm from a small town in Iceland. There's lots of opportunities. Education is free. Like there's I think it's just a completely different society. But when I was reading that book, there were certain scenarios in the book and certain ways of thinking that person thought and wrote that I could completely relate to, even though it was completely unique and different than my original or my upbringing or my backstory. So don't dismiss your story to be so unique that it's that other people can't relate to like fractions of it.
Yeah. And just don't forget about like I guess it could be called just like the basic human condition, right? The need for relationships in general, right? You don't need to be identical to your audience, for them to have a relationship with you. A lot of times you don't even have to have anything in common. They could just like the way you are and be friendly and vulnerable and open, and that's, something that we're all looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. Well, it's been an hour. I think it's been quite a good session so far. Let us know what you liked, what you disliked, what questions you have for future episodes. You can find me at Audio Issues. And if you want to improve your mixes, you can go to mixfinisher.com and download my Mix Finisher cheat sheet there. The book, Step-by-Step Mixing, is available on stepbystepmixing.com. You Get What You Give is available on yougetwhatyougivebook.com. Links in the description below. And we're happy that you took the time to hang out with us today, and we hope that you found it useful.
Yeah, those are some fancy URLs, man. I like that. Yeah. And once again, I'm Ryan from the Indie Music Academy. You can check out the free workshop I've prepared for you at indiemusicacademy.com. It's an hour of video marketing training, specifically designed to help musicians. So if that interests you, head over to indiemusicacademy.com. Also, it will be linked below if you're on my YouTube channel, if you're watching from the channel. And also, like I mentioned earlier, there's also a link to the 80/20 Music Business Crash Course, which is my music business course that I made specifically for online musicians who want to grow a fan base using the modern methods of media, such as email lists, social media, Facebook ads, putting it all in perspective, which is pretty much what we talked about today, one of the most important things, and then utilizing the 80/20 rule so that you can determine the 20% that you need to focus on, and so you can forget the rest and continue being creative and not being bogged down by all of this marketing stuff. I want to get you results without taking up all your time so that you can still make music and connect with your audience. So if you're interested in either of those things, the links are below on my channel, or go to the Indie Music Academy website, indiemusicacademy.com.
All right.
All
Take it easy,
right.
guys. See you later.
See ya.